So yesterday, the big headline came out. Buyers are canceling real estate purchase agreements around the country at about a 15% clip. Now, I don't know how that impacts you, but if you're thinking of your home, let me say it scared me. I feel bad for all the sellers. I feel great for the buyers. But we're in a transitional market in Florida. When my wife and I got smoked, lost so much of our money. And I'll tell a little story, and I'll tell you what we can do about it, and then I'll refer to the contracts, which I have parked right over here. There's the California Residential Purchase Agreement. So we sold our home in Carlsbad. We bought actually a couple months before we got married, and by about 2003, we sold it. Went to Florida to become real estate investors. At first, we were careful. Then we got involved, and we had 4 properties as the market started transitioning there. I'd say. We saw the houses being bought more slowly. Foot traffic came down. Our home was on the market. And while we were getting offers, they were a little bit below where we wanted to be. And where we were anticipating the trend to be particularly. Like we saw a neighbor's home sell at $635. It was on the other side of the street, so I had a better view. But prices were going up. It was a month or two later. We were like, hey, we can sell for $635. We wound up taking an offer around $600. Might have been $605. Now, during that escrow period, prices started dropping. We saw Superior Markets houses coming on the market to ours at a lower price. And we're like, wow. So, of course, the buyer backed out of the contract. When we put the home back on the market, we wound up selling in the 400s. We lost a significant amount of equity. In fact, we barely sold the home for what we owed. No, what we paid for. We didn't lose money on the home. I think we made $25,000 total when we were really looking to have a substantial gain, like well over $150,000. So as you know, everybody feels things like that. And I've been in California, real estate broker and attorney, on and off for years. People have called me about trying to get out of selling their home or buying their home. I'm very good at it. I've had clients. I mean, we've sold 200 homes in my brokerage. I'm very aware of the contract. And I gave lots of great advice, most of it under the previous real estate contract. California came out with a new contract at the end of last year. Well, let me just see exactly the date on this. This California Association of Realtors, here, I'll just pull it over. California Association of Realtors revised 1221. And most of us don't have as much experience with this. I had hundreds of, my clients had done hundreds, and I've reviewed hundreds more. With the old contract, not as many of this client, frankly, not as many people tried to get out of these contracts recently. Let's go back. We were looking at, let me just give a caveat that should tell everybody. And you're in a transitioning market. Sorry, there's the camera. There's 2 very important things. One, you want to be working with a realtor who had a lot of experience selling a lot of homes in the previous transition and down market. Because the strategies in those markets are critical. Like at some point in time when the market's really slowing down, you have to know the ways to sell to those 1 or 2 buyers that are going to buy a home that month. Like a buyer moving into the area for a job, a buyer being part of a relocation service. Those are your gold buyers. Those are the buyers you negotiate with. You don't turn down because they're probably going to close. And there's ways to market to them. You need a realtor who can tell you straight up how they're going to find the buyers that have to close. If they can't do it, they're not your realtor. If they don't have the strategies for a transition and down market, they're not your realtor. That's the first thing you should do is ask them to make sure they have it or hire someone who can oversee the transaction. Plenty of wealthy people. This was a great, frankly, I'm just going to tell you, the down market and the transition market was a great, great market for me because some people went for me right for advice. The people who loved working with their realtors but had some money would have me oversee the transaction. Wealthy people doing transactions in Rancho Santa Fe and La Jolla, their advisors, it would be maybe a realtor, someone with a license or a lawyer in another state, would call me up and see if I could be on the team while they manage their realtor. This is a market where you want to be able to manage your realtor. That's it, period. Now, if your realtor has exceptional experience, maybe they don't need managing. Exceptional experience, and you know they have the integrity to serve your interests, awesome. Those are the types of realtors I'd be looking to hire on your behalf. And no, most of our programs, we don't have to charge you money for it. But some people wanted to pay me and have their realtor make their full commission. So anyway, you want to find a realtor either on our network or an experienced realtor, and you have to understand And your realtor has to agree that they're very limited. Like, for instance, this is in paragraph 13 of the RPA that deals with removal of contingencies and cancellation rights. And right here, this is the critical understanding here. Neither agents nor escrow holder are qualified to provide any opinion on whether either party has acted in good faith or which party is entitled to the deposit funds. Buyer and seller are advised to seek advice of qualified California real estate attorney regarding this matter. Now, escrow super routinely explains this to everybody. The seller's like, I want to close, I want the money, I want the deposit, I want to close. And the realtor, all the escrow agents, they're all usually veterans here, will say, well, you've got to use either a notice of buyer to perform or a notice to close escrow, and we have to work pursuant to that, and we need this contract canceled by both parties. And then the issue becomes, how can we do that? And then the realtors will say, well, I can't really tell you whether you should close escrow and then sue them or wait. And I will say it looks like the penalty for not doing this fairly is simply $1,000. So a seller has very little leverage. Basically, that's my point. A seller has very little leverage in terms of keeping the deposit money. And there's so many things written in here that give the buyers outs. It's super hard for sellers to do it using these contracts. That's why when people are selling luxury homes and they have lawyers on their team, they either cut out a lot of paragraphs here or they use different contracts or supplemental contracts, which, you know, if you're in that position, if you really want to lock down a buyer, we can do that. Give me a call and I'll explain it to you. I'll probably have to put a little bit in writing because I don't want it to be misunderstood, but we can work for you. And if we're advising you and helping you, and you're working with a realtor on our team, or we're helping you get a listing agent, we can do it at no extra cost. But finally, because I don't like to leave people hanging and say, oh, you got to use me, it's bait and switch. I will say, if you're working with a realtor, one of the good things you can do is change these contingencies right here. Let's go to contingencies. See, the default on these are 17 days. Now, if you're selling at a price you really like, advantageous to you, you don't want to scare a buyer away, so maybe you leave the 17 days in and hope the market doesn't change significantly in your area. However, if you really don't want to give buyers outs or wait this long, or if the buyer is extracting some compromises from you during negotiations or a very big price reduction, you might have your realtor say, well, if we're going down there, we need to know within 7 days if you're going to close. The market is not that busy right now, so you should be able to get your inspections done in the next 2 or 3 days. So we're only going, so let's change these 17 days to 5 days, or at least for some of the contingencies. So that way you can get moving on this. Now, it's still hard to keep their money if you haven't set it up right, but at least, you know, you can start closing contingencies early and feeling comfortable. Now, if you'd like to know more, you can go to winnerscheck.com because, you know, my motto is before buying or selling real estate, winners check. Winnerscheck.com, and you can set up a free strategy session where basically I find out what your goals are, how strong you are. Like I get a 1 through 10 on some of them, and then we decide, like, are you going to just go with the standard transaction? And we'll talk to the agents and find out that if there's still plenty of buyers in the market, we don't have to panic, but we'll be prepared. Like, for instance, I'll make sure that you don't sign more than a 30-day contract. And I know all the realtor objections, and if they're legit, we'll work something out with them. Like if they're saying, well, we're going to spend a lot of money. It's a luxury home. We're going to spend a lot of money marketing them. Okay, how much you're going to spend? Okay, so we can get out at any time if we're willing to give you $5,000 or $7,000 or pay for the marketing or whatever. And we'll talk to it about it. So there's so many ways to work with a realtor, but one of the most important things is that you do not agree to a listing contract of more than 30 days, 31 days, you know, make it a month. So for that and more information, go to winnerscheck.com. Thanks. My name is John McConnin. I'm a real estate attorney and a broker in California.